I wish more languages had that. I dislike shadowing in Rust a lot. Funny, it's funny you should say that because I was on your team. I thought shadowing in Rust was like such a bad idea, and now I love shadowing in Rust. And the reason being, I have an example somewhere. Here, I can just search the word maybe. There we go. I always am like, hey, get an index of something. If it equals null, I want to just return this back out. But if it doesn't equal null, I want to like unwrap that null. Because I generally hate indenting. I try not to indent. So I'm not going to have the inverse of this, which is capture grouping, and then getting out of it. And so I really wish I could just do this, right? Like I actually wish I could shadow. I think shadowing is really, really nice. I actually really do like shadowing now that I understand it. Before, I didn't like it, even when I used it, and I did understand it. That's kind of a dick phrase to say. I did understand it, but I just didn't. Now that I've used it enough times, I actually really, really like this, right? What is shadowing? Just what I just did right there. This right here is a maybe U size. This right here is a U size. So a shadow is to change its type. I'm going to change its type from option U size to U size. You can use or else. Yeah. I mean, those are things that, this is me. This is like some of my first Zig I ever wrote. I know there's better ways. I know there is like an or else something. I haven't quite got there yet, right? I'm still learning all the things. I like to write a language in a way that's familiar with me, how to handle it. And then as I get better, I like to try to get better at it. I like to kind of like as you can see right here, I'm kind of getting good at the catching. Right? I'm getting there. Just please let me get there. I'm getting there slowly, though I do agree with you. I do agree with you that I guess I could do something along the lines of, oh, whoopsies. I just realized that I was yanking the whole wrong thing. Whoa. That was crazy. So you're saying I can go or else return null. All right. That's really, really nice. Thank you. I know I was yanking wrong. Very, very beautiful. Like these things, like this again, Zig has some really nice operations here. This is very, very nice. But again, what's the use case of shadowing? When you wish to change a variable type, but keep the same name, right? Very, very nice. All right, final words. With all this being said, Rust has some pros. It's fast, and well, that's mainly it. No. Multi-threaded programming, I find to be, generally speaking, multi-threaded programming in Rust is pretty enjoyable. Just multi-threading itself, of course, I cheat with arcmutex and or clone. Forgive me. But if you clone and or arcmutex, async is really not that bad. There's plenty of reasons to actually really like it. Errors as values, I think generally is a good way to go. But if you're trying to get maximum performance and async, I find it very difficult. I do like the idea of having the reminder of like, hey, you can't F this. Like here's a good example. If you use channels with Go, there's like these 4 rules of channels that just make it super, super hard to work with. And I hate it. Whereas when you work with channels with Rust, because it has an optional type, it actually makes it really, really easy to use a channel. You can't get stuck in a whole set of things. And this just genuinely makes async programming significantly nicer. Just like at an entire level. I can't remember, let's see, the 4 bad things about Golang channels, right? There's like the 4 things you got to know. I know there's one, whatever. I don't even want to look for it. We're not even going to look for it. But there's like these 4 rules of things that are very, very annoying. And Rust just doesn't have it due to the options. That means you can, like, here's one thing. If you return a nil through a channel, you close the channel, if I'm not mistaken. Whereas with Rust, because you have options, you can have effectively some null, right? You can say, hey, this is empty. There's a bunch of stuff. Closed channel is only. You're mistaken, I'm afraid. I'm mistaken on that one. Okay, my bad. I don't use channels a lot. I thought there was like no nils. Reading from a nil channel panic. Yes, reading from a nil panic. Nils and Golang and channels. I thought there was a whole. Okay, yeah. I know there's like a whole bunch to it. Like I said, I'm not great at Go. I use almost all my Go has no channels except for a couple, and I find channels to be really great. But I know that Rust had it has really nice ways to know what to do. Here, okay, let's look at this. The axiom of channel. Send let's see, a send to a nil channel blocks forever. Like, that sucks. Can we all agree that this is bad? That's one really nice part about Rust is that it just returns an error and says, hey, channel use of closed channel. It's very, very nice. Receive from a nil channel blocks forever. Can't you get around this by doing a receive with 2 arguments? Can't you? You can get around that by doing a. Like I said, I'm not
like a
great at Go.
receive
I use almost with X and done. Right? Can't you get around that now with that? So isn't that axiom kind of generally dead? Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. It's the val OK pattern. Yeah. That's. I didn't want to write all this stuff. You know what I mean? Let's see. Send to a closed channel panics. Also, again, that's pretty reasonable. I'd rather have it return an error though. The weird part is that Go makes such usage of errors. I'm surprised that they didn't just send an error back, right? I feel like the usage, a channel 2 would be really nice if they had errors and stuff. And then what's that? Receive from a closed channel returns the 0 value immediately.
Right.
This is, of course, because they don't have options.
So now we're back at
right?
the freeCodeCamp JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta main page. We just finished the certification project of building a power sport, the year, the head coach. We're also going to have this little drop down with a filter. You can see all the concepts like switch statements, default parameters, object.freeze, the map method, and more. All right. So let's get to it. All right. So we see right here, we've got something that says team stats. And then, all right. So this is made, we know this company is out in California, but for some reason, they're saying football instead of soccer. I'm sure it has something to do with the fact that coders and programmers are actually not anywhere near athletes. So why not just confuse everybody? Anyway, so for any North Americans, we're talking about soccer. We're not talking about American football. So yeah, we're going to have something with the team, the sport, the year, the head coach. We're also going to have this little drop down with a filter. You can see this is all the players right here. And then we've got players with nicknames right here. We've got the players that are the forwards, which is the position. We've got the midfielders. We've got the defenders. And we've also got the goalkeepers. And you can see on each card, we have the name, we have their position, we have the number, and we also have their nickname on it, right? So let's get to it. All right. So now we're on to step 1, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp. All right. So in this project, we're going to build a set of football team cards and learn about nested objects, object destructuring, default parameters, event listeners, and switch statements. All of the HTML and CSS for this project have been provided for us, just like the last few. All right. So we got that going on right there. So we're going to start by accessing the ID called team from the HTML document and storing it in a const variable called team name, right? And we're also going to remember that we can use the get element by ID method for this. All right. So yeah, we'll start off by saying const team name, right? And that's going to equal document dot get element by ID. All right. Then we're going to have the quotes inside the parentheses and we'll say team just like this. We'll go to the end, cap it off with a semicolon, check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 2, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 2. All right. So next we're going to access the ID called sport from the HTML document and store it in a const variable called type sport from the. So next we're going to access the ID called sport from the HTML document and store Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building building football team cards. Step 2. All right. So next we're going to access the ID called sport from the HTML document and store it in a const variable called type of sport. Below that variable, we're going to assign the ID of year to a const variable called World Cup year. All right. So for this one, let's start off by taking all of line 1, copying that, drop it off on 2 and 3, just like that. Get rid of 4. And then we'll change this second team name. We'll call it type of sport. The third team name we'll call World Cup. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building building football team cards. Step 2. All right. So next we're going to access the ID called sport from the HTML document and store it in a const variable called type of sport. Below that variable, we're going to assign the ID of year to a const variable called World Cup year. All right. So for this one, let's start off by taking all of line 1, copying that, drop it off on 2 and 3, just like that. Get rid of 4. And then we'll change this second team name. We'll call it type of sport. The third team name we'll call World Cup year. The third team we'll call year. And the second team we'll call sport. All right. So let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 3. And we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building building
Tell that a channel is closed because it returns a none, right? That means there was nothing there, as opposed to something that's empty, which is very, very different, right? So an option would be really, really nice. And so I would prefer that over this. I knew there was there's some quirkiness, right? And so I find that this one is like I find this one to be very difficult. Yeah, you can always use val OK. You can always use val OK. And that should be used. You should use val OK. It's just, I would rather have an option type that makes sense. And so what I find that is when I read from a channel, so I do this thing, I forget where I do it, but I do a thing where I check for results. And how I check for results is that what I do is, is that I do a function call, like a function get. Well, I'm way too zoomed in. And I'll do like a select, and then I'll do like a pull from X, and then I'll also do like a default return something, right? And so that way I have like a default return and this, and that way it's like a non-blocking quick value select. And I know this is like this is some level of a pattern. Anyways, I don't know. I found, this article is skill issues, but I think the thing that you have to pull from this is that just because there's skill issues doesn't mean there's not real issues as well. I think the pit of success with Rust is a bit shallow. I think it's very easy to do the wrong thing. And that's why I think it's pretty universally agreed that with Rust, people find that they build something, they refactor it, they build it new. They refactor it, they build it again. They refactor it, right? And they find themselves in this constant refactoring thing because they're not, it's very hard to write it right the first time or even write it good enough the first time. And so I find that it's just that Rust doesn't have the same ability to just fall into the correct way. At least that's my general perception of it. I think if I wrote it all the time, I could fall into the right way very easily. I think that if I just had enough reps, I think Rust would be very easy at all points, including in the async world. But I think because I don't have enough reps, I don't do it 40, 50, 60 hours a week, I don't fall into that. There you go, the pit of skill issues. It's a pit of skill issues more than anything else. Rust is fun, but it's less practical. Sure. I guess it's also safe too. If we compare it to C++, it's obviously the better language. I do feel like that's also, again, I think that this just, when I hear this phrase, what I hear is that you're either comparing it to C++ 11 and below, or B, you've never really done C++ and you heard it's stupid. And so therefore you kind of like dunk on it. If you use unique pointers or shared pointers and everything, you generally, it's pretty easy to do the right thing and go. Or I mean in C++. It's more verbose than I like. Can we all agree it's more verbose than we like? But generally speaking, long as you stick to certain things, it's pretty easy. And then, of course, there's also like all the crazy operation overloads and the weird, crazy copy constructors, the L values, R values. There's some hard parts that I think take a long time to learn. To master C++ is like mastering Rust. I'd rather have my application take a few dozen milliseconds longer to run if it means my development time is cut in half, which is an interesting trade-off to make for
all of the information for our football team. So yeah, we'll say const object like that, cap it off with a semicolon, check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 6 and
an algorithmic trading. Because algorithmic trading, I would assume a few dozen milliseconds can be impactful. On the bright side, if we choose to write my application in Go, I'd also probably have some regret. What if it could be faster? I'd think to myself, there's yet another article about how Rust is the best thing since sliced bread. Oh, geez, I made a mistake. At least article FOMO, influencer FOMO is real. Like real talk, influencer FOMO is super real. By the way, I did build an arbitrage across different trades for cryptos, and we used Bellman-Ford's maximum flow problem to detect multi-leg arbitrage, and it was pretty sweet. I made some money, but the biggest problem is I just didn't have $10 million to put in, or I literally could have made an incredible amount of money back in the day when there were such inefficiencies in the market. At the very least, now that I know Rust, I feel like I can learn anything. Maybe I'll pick up OCaml for the hell of it.
And we'll see you next time. Methods by building football team cards with the string value of Argentina. All right. So we'll start out by saying team like this with the colon and then the string Argentina like that. We'll cap it off with a comma since we're still in the middle of this There's this thing called the object. Then we'll check the code, looks good, and submit it.
It can't be much worse than Rust, can it? OCaml's great, but I think you're going to run into things that you dislike about OCaml equally, but probably less. I spent this whole weekend fixing it's just milliseconds performance. Dude, people do that. You can learn anything. Just put in the time. You can learn anything. You really can. Thank you for reading. If you're interested in algorithmic trading and AI, subscribe to Aurora's Insights. Want to see how fast Rust really is? Create accounts on Nexus Trade today. Interesting. Let's see what the comments are. Oh, are there any comments? I was wondering if there's comments. Let's check out some comments. I completely lost it in the low IQ article. Damn. Dude, it's so much nicer to say the word skill issues. Dude, I do like this. Well, Cornell, I went to CMU. I am a GEM fellow, and I'm a software engineer making 6 figures. What about me is low IQ? Winky face. You know, you don't need to adjust yourself. A little word from the experienced. Yeah, you know what? Instead of that, I'll just show you. Go to YouTube. Go to the Primeagen. I have a short that I thought was very, very good, which I tried to make it as obvious as possible. I have a short that I thought was really, really good. Right here. We're not going to listen to it. Nope. And the comments are just, man discover asserts, then we call this defensive program. That sounds like strong typing with extra steps, right? Like, they completely miss what asserts are about, and they say a bunch of stuff. So instead, in 20 years, just imagine what else this guy hasn't figured out. So instead, you just don't respond. Sound like you sound like a loser. You just don't respond, because honestly, it's easier, and I'm okay with that. And I try just never to respond, because I'm just like, man, you know, it just makes you feel shitty. And then they're like trying to dunk it, dude. It's just like, I ain't about it. That's still, let's see, that's still not Rust. That's just MongoDB crate you're complaining about, brother. It's pretty funny. You're supposed to write your own errors and overload the source methods for the stack trace. Anyhow, does a good job. .context. You can't blame Rust for you choosing the wrong language for your use case. If you didn't care about compile time safety and needed faster iteration, you should have known to use language like Go or Python instead. The problem is that you can say these things, but often, personally, I don't know those things until I do them, and I get burnt by them, right? Because you can generalize this advice to a whole bunch of you should haves, right? You ought to have known. And I find that I don't know until I have goofed up several times. You know what I mean? And I think that is really, 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 really obvious. Only when you're on the other side. Prime wants to agree and disagree at the same time. Exactly. No, I do. I do want to agree, because it is correct. But it's so hard to tell somebody that. You know, you don't know until you know. Like, you know, I've known about asserts for so long. I've seen them in code for so long. I never used them. Then all of a sudden I used them and I really understood them. Now I can't stop using them, right? Like, you could not have explained it to me until someone named Joran, the Tiger Beetle database guy, gave such an impressive presentation. I said, I must be missing something. I will figure this out. And now that I have, now I effing love it. Despite the fact that I've known about them for like a decade. Oh, you too? After Tiger Beetle? Yeah, it's just one of those things that's like, it's super hard to explain something until you've experienced it. Programming the negative space article, yeah, it's good. It's very hard. You know, you should explore and you should use technologies incorrectly, because you will never know why to use them correctly. Performance matters. Standard. Let's see. For high frequency trading, yeah. Standard algo bots that do crypto, not so much. Okay, you should see the FPG and algos that are nanosecond sensitive. Yeah, you're talking about like Jane Street, OCaml on stuff. Dude, it's crazy. Been in this space for almost a decade, and there is some wild stuff out there. Rust, Go, etc. are not even considered where big money is. Yeah, isn't it like just you're burning FPGAs? I know that when it comes to Forex exchange, it's all about FPGAs and nanoseconds. Sleep the beast. Thank you very much for the 5 gifted subs. Appreciate that. Anyways, children learn by exploring. Yeah, and I think we shouldn't discredit exploring. We really should be very careful about that. I think it is good insights in the sense that the pit of success is extremely hard to fall into with Rust. And I think that if you're going to do Rust, you got to learn the language really, really well to be effective. And that is a huge danger to most people, is learning the language extremely well before jumping in. So before you rewrite your stuff, Maybe spend 6 months really learning the language. Read through the book, understand about allocations, read through the async book, understand that, practice, pin project, all that crap. And then once you get it all done, then maybe, it can be better. Anyways, the name is the Primogen. I don't know why I slapped my ball. I honestly have no idea why the ball slapping just happened. I spent 18 months rebuilding.
Hey everyone, it's Mako.
New key called head coach with a key of, and then below that property, we're going to add another key called matches with a number value of 7. All right. So key name players with the value of an empty. But we're going to have to put this special O right there, because if we don't, it won't work. So let's do that, and then put the O, Almiron. There we go. And then we'll have the comma, and then we'll do position is going to be forward. We'll do comma, and then we'll have number 1. Number 1 like that, comma, is captain. This is going to be like that. And that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 13, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms, data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 13. All right. So below that object, we're going to create a new object with the following properties. All this stuff right here. All right. So let's take all of 23 to the end of 16 like this. Copy it. We'll highlight 24 in the end of 23. Drop it off like this. We'll change Almiron to Batista. We'll do forward is going to be midfielder. All right. And we're going to change this 1 to 2. Thusly, the rest is fine. Let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 14. And we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms, data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 14. All right. So the rest of the data for the my favorite football team.players array has been filled out for us. Yes, it's right there. All right. So the next step is to ensure that we can't modify this object by adding or removing any properties. We're going to use the method called object.freeze, which will freeze this object and prevent any changes from being made. All right. So if we go check out MDM, the object.freeze static method freezes an object. Freezing an object prevents extensions and makes existing properties non-writable and non-configurable. A frozen object can no longer be changed. New properties cannot be added. Existing properties cannot be removed. Their enumerability, configurability, writability, and value cannot be changed, and the object's prototype cannot be reassigned. Freeze returns the same object that was passed in. All right. And also, freezing an object is the highest integrity level that JavaScript provides, turns out. All right, so now that we know that, what we're going to do is we'll come down here Use the object.freeze method to freeze the my favorite football team object. All right, so we'll start off by saying object.freeze, and inside here we'll do my favorite football team, like that. So let's check the code. Looks, whoa, cap it off with a semicolon. Looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 15, and we'll see you next time. From the my favorite football team object, notation for this. All right. So yeah, we'll say const sport equals, then we'll do my favorite football team dot sport, cap it off with a semicolon. That should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 16, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 16. All right. So below the sport variable, we're going to access the key called team from the my favorite football team object and assign it to a new const variable called team. All right. So for this one, let's just triple click 178, copy it. Let's highlight all of 180 up to the end of 178. Drop it off like this. Not that. Let's highlight 180 and 179. Drop it off like this. All right. And then let's change sport to team. All right. Select it, copy it, paste it down here. Check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 17. And we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 17. All right. So in the last two steps, we've been accessing properties from the my favorite football team object using dot notation and assigning them to new const variables. But in JavaScript, there's an easier way to accomplish the same goal, believe it or not. All right. So the object destructuring syntax allows us to unpack values from arrays and objects. All right. So we've got this object here. We've got const developer obj. We've got these two properties, name and is developer. And so if we use object destructuring on this, we can say const name, comma, is developer inside of these curly braces. And we put these spaces here just to delineate that these are destructured objects, right? So they don't need to be there, but it's just to help us know that that's what they are. And then we say equals developer obj like this. And so when we go down and do a console.log on name, it's going to equal Jessica Wilkins. And if we do console.log on is developer, it's going to go true. So instead of doing like name equals developer obj.name, we can just do it like this. And it saves a few keystrokes, all right? We don't have to have 2 lines of code, and we can put a comma and all this other stuff, all right? So hopefully that makes sense. We'll go over it a little more down here. So we're going to rewrite the 2 lines of code below using the new destructuring syntax. And our answer should be 1 line of code. All right. So yeah, just like this, we're going to say const. We'll say curly braces. Let's say space, space, and then let's press the left key, the left arrow key. And then we'll say, what are we going to say here? Sport. And then also team like that. We'll press the end key. We'll say this equals my favorite football team like that, right? So let's check this out in the console. Let's comment both of these out so it doesn't confuse us. All right. So now let's come down here and say console.log sport. All right. So we open up the console, football. All right. So we come up here. Remember my favorite football team. All right. So the name of this big object right here is my favorite football team, right? Dot sport is football. And if we change it, look, we've got Argentina here because I don't want to scroll back up. If we change this to team, check it out. It's Argentina just like this. So yes, I do agree. This does look stupid, but the fact is it does work also. So instead of having to write this stuff out, we can just have this as a variable name and this as a variable name, and it accesses the properties of this object, all right? So let's get rid of this, check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 18. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 18. All right. So next we're going to add the year and players to our destructuring assignment. All right. So yeah, we're just going to say comma year and comma players like that. So if we come down here to 180, we can see when we do console.log, just like the other ones, if we do year like this, open up the console, we see 1986. If we do players, we see the array with all these objects in it of these players and their positions and whatnot. All right. So we know that works. Let's get rid of the console.log, check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 19, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 19. All right. So now we need access to the coach name value from the myfavoritefootballteam.headcoach object using the destructuring syntax, right? So, pardon me. So remember, we have this thing up here, the head coach object. That's one of the, what is this? One of the properties of the My Favorite Football Team object, all right? So let's come down here. And so what we're going to do is just like on the last one, we'll say const, and then we'll say curly braces like that. How about that? Space, space, left arrow. We'll say coach name like this. We'll press end, press equals space, and then we'll do my favorite football team. We'll just take, need to start displaying text content right here. So yeah, what we're going to do of sport dot text content now equals sport like that. And you can see right here, it changed to football from nothing. So that looks like what we're looking for. Check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 21, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 21. All right. So next we're going to assign the team variable to team name dot text content. All right. So for this one, let's just triple click 178, copy that. Let's highlight 181 and 180, drop it off like this. Let's change type of sport to team name like that. And let's change sport to team, right? And now we can see over here, team is Argentina. So when we check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 22, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 22. All right. So now we're going to assign the year variable to World Cup year.text content. And then below that, we'll assign the coach name variable to head coach.text content. And now we should be able to see all of that information here, all right? we're going to start by creating an empty arrow function called setPlayerCards. All right. We're going to have that equal an empty set of parentheses like this. We'll have the arrow thusly, and then we'll have the empty object like that. Cap it off with a semicolon, check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 24, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms, data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 24. All right. So function parameters can be initialized with default values. If a function is called without an argument, then the default value will be used. So we've got an example here, const greeting equals, and then inside of this, what is this, parameter list, we'll have name equals anonymous, and this is the default value right here. Then we'll have the arrow and the little section where we're going to return hello with a space plus name, right? So when we do console.log greeting and then have John in there as the, what is the thing called, as the argument, we're going to have hello John like that. Then when we have console.log greeting with nothing in there, we'll have hello anonymous because this is the default value, right? So now we're going to add a new parameter to our setPlayerCards function and call it R. Yes. And we're going to assign it a default value of players. All right. So we'll put R right here equals players, right? So let's come down here just in case we forgot, and we'll say console.log players. And we'll remember that that's going to be this list with all the players in objects just like that. So let's get rid of this thing right here. Check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 25. And we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms, data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript methods by building football team cards. Step 25. All right. So the next step is to create a new array that will be responsible for adding the player card information to the page. Inside the setPlayerCards function, we're going to start by adding the map method to R that will take in an empty callback function. All right. Next, we're going to use the addition assignment operator, so the plus equals, to assign the new array to playercards.innerHTML. And we're going to remember that the innerHTML property gets, or in this case, sets the HTML markup for the player cards element. All right. So yeah, for this one, we're going to be doing the plus equals operator on the playercards.innerHTML. So that's what we're going to do. Next, we're going to, all right. So the next step is to create a new array that will be responsible for adding the player card information to the page. Inside the setPlayerCards function, we're going to start by adding the map method to R that will take in an empty callback function, all right? Next, we're going to use the addition assignment operator, so the plus equals, to assign the new array to playercards.innerHTML. And we're going to remember that the innerHTML property gets, or in this case, sets the HTML markup for the player cards element. All right. So yeah, for this one, we're going to be doing the plus equals operator on the player cards.innerHTML. So that's what we're going to start with. We'll say player cards.innerHTML like that. And then we'll do the plus equals like that. And now we're going to do the R method. We're going to put the map method on the R. So we're going to put the map method on this thing right here. So we'll say r.map. And then we're going to put an empty callback function on there. So we'll have the empty parentheses like this. We'll have the arrow, and then we'll do the curly braces like that. Let's go to the end, cap it off with a semicolon, check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 26, and we'll see. Now we're on to good and submit. We'll have the arrow. We'll say r.map. And then we're going to put an empty callback function on there. So we'll have the empty parentheses like this. We'll have the arrow, and then we'll do the curly braces like that. Let's go to the end, cap it off with a semicolon, check the code, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 26, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, captain, and nickname property that each contains a name. Step 26. All right. So R contains a series of objects that each contains a name, position, number, is captain, and nickname property. In order to access each of those properties inside the callback function, we will need to use object destructuring to unpack them into variables. All right. So here's an example. We've got function, my example function, and then inside of this area where we will keep the parameters, we have the little curly braces with the space after it to delineate that it's a destructured object. And then we have the variable name, age, job, and city, all as the, what are those things called? All as the parameters, right? So inside the parameter list in the callback function for the map method, we're going to unpack all 5 object properties from objects in R using object destructuring. All right. So yeah, right here inside of the parameter list, we'll do the curly braces, space, space, left arrow 1 time, and then we'll start by saying name, name, position, number, then is captain, then nickname. All right. And that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 27. And we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing JavaScript methods by step 27. All right. So inside the body of the callback function, we will need to add template literals, which will contain the HTML content for the player cards, all right? Inside the template literals, we're going to add an empty div with a class of player card, all right? So let's start off right here, and let's have the template literals. Then we'll open up a div, close the div, and then inside the opening div, we will say class of player hyphen card. All right. So that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 28. And we'll see you next time. Say class of. Inside the template literals, we're going to add an empty div with a class of player card. All right. So let's start off right here, and let's have the template literals. Then we'll open up a div, close the div, and then inside the opening div, we will say class of player hyphen card. All right. So that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. And then inside the opening div, we will say class of, player hyphen card. All right. So that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. Step 28. And step 28. All right. And submit it. All right. Right. Now, on. That should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good with a class of player card. All right. So let's start off right here and let's have the template literals. Then we'll open up a div, close the div. And then inside the opening div, we will say class of, player hyphen card. All right. So that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 28. And we'll see you next time. All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms, data structures beta. Learn modern JavaScript beta. Learn modern. And let's All right. Now we're on. So that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good. Player hyphen card. All right. So that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good. And submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 28. And all right. So that should take care of it. Let's check the code. Looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to step 28, and we'll see you next time.